The fog came early to Willow Creek that morning, rolling low and heavy through the hollow streets like something alive. It draped itself over the rooftops of crooked Victorian houses and slid across the cracked asphalt of Main Street, blurring the edges of everything. The town looked half drowned in it, like a place that had quietly given up on being seen. From the highway, Willow Creek was little more than a faded sign and a stretch of rusted guardrail. But as the black SUV wound its way down the empty road, its headlights cutting thin slices through the mist, three figures leaned forward, curious, excited, and just a little uneasy. "God, this place looks like a postcard from hell," Taylor said from the back seat, one hand clutching a camera, the other balancing a half-empty energy drink. He grinned, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Perfect for us." "Perfect for ratings," Alex replied, adjusting the rearview mirror. He was 28, lean and perpetually caffeinated, someone who lived on ambition and the quiet terror of failure. "Come on, man. Forgotten Towns of America. This is episode 1. You'll thank me when Netflix calls." Jamie, sitting shotgun with her hair dyed a fading violet, laughed softly, assuming the town has Wi-Fi strong enough to upload it. The road curved past an abandoned factory whose brick walls were tattooed with ivy. Beyond it, the river glimmered dully under the gray light, its surface unmoving. The sign they passed read, "Welcome to Willow Creek, SD 1839. The paint had peeled so badly that the last word looked more like Evil Creek. They slowed as they entered town. Storefronts stood boarded up, their windows dusty, the for sale signs faded to ghost-pale rectangles. A single streetlight flickered above a diner with a cracked neon sign that once said, "Eat here." Now it only said, "Ear." A wind chime rattled weakly somewhere, and the sound was the only thing that moved. The Willow Inn sat at the edge of town like a half-forgotten relic. The paint on its sign had bubbled from too many summers, and the porch sagged under its own age. Inside, the lobby smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and something older, maybe dust, maybe loneliness. Behind the counter sat Mrs. Hargrove, the kind of woman who could tell everything about you in one look and immediately disapproved of half of it. Her gray hair was tied in a bun so tight it looked like it hurt. "Y'all from the city?" she asked, voice low but firm. Alex nodded. "Chicago. We're doing a little film project about..." She cut him off with a look sharp enough to stop a clock. "Best not poke around too much. Folks here like their privacy." Taylor exchanged a glance with Jamie, half amused, half spooked. "Noted," he said quietly. Mrs. Hargrove slid them the keys. "Room 3. Don't go wandering after dark. Creek fog gets thick. People get turned around." Then, almost as an afterthought, "And if you hear things, ignore them. This town likes to talk." That last sentence stuck with Jamie. This town likes to talk. Their room was small but clean, 2 beds, faded wallpaper, and a single window overlooking the empty street. Alex set up his laptop immediately while Taylor tested his equipment. Microphones, tripods, drone batteries. Jamie unpacked her notebook and pressed play on her handheld recorder. "This is Jamie from the Hollow Hour podcast," she said softly, her voice echoing faintly off the walls. "We've just arrived in Willow Creek, Illinois, a town so quiet it feels like it's holding its breath. Population, under 1,000, known for basically nothing, which is perfect." Alex grinned. "That's the tagline right there." They spent the afternoon exploring Main Street. The diner still operated. Inside, a few locals sat hunched over coffee like statues. The air smelled of bacon grease and stale cigarettes. When Alex asked if anyone remembered the old mills by the river, a man at the counter muttered, "Ain't nothing down there but ghosts." The waitress frowned. "Don't fill their heads with that, Earl." But Earl didn't look up. "They'll find out soon enough." Jamie jotted that down in her notebook. They left the diner and wandered through the town square, where the courthouse clock had stopped at 3:17 years ago. A stray dog limped past a memorial fountain, its water long gone green with algae. Nearby, a faded plaque read, "In memory of those lost during the plague years, 1883 to 1885. Jamie stopped to trace her fingers over the letters. "Plague years," she murmured. "You ever hear about a plague in Illinois?" Alex shook his head. "Nope, but I just found our hook." By sunset, they were back at the inn, surrounded by empty coffee cups and piles of notes. Alex had uploaded the day's footage, shots of the town, the diner, the plaque. Jamie scrolled through old newspaper archives on her laptop, squinting at yellowed clippings scanned into databases. "There's something here," she said, excitement creeping into her voice. "Look, there was a cholera outbreak in 1884, but some of these reports talk about disappearances, not deaths, rumors of mass graves near the town square. Then boom, no follow-up. It just stops." "Mass graves?" Taylor frowned. "You're kidding." "Tell me that's not documentary gold," Alex said. "The lost victims of Willow Creek." Taylor leaned back, rubbing his face. "You know, we could just shoot a cute fall travel vlog next time. Top 10 pumpkin patches that won't murder you." Jamie smirked. "Too late. You're the tech guy in a horror doc. That's like wearing a red shirt on Star Trek." He groaned. "Fantastic." Outside, the fog had thickened again, pressing against the window like something with intent. The neon motel sign flickered. Half of the letters burned out so that it now read "Low In." A scratching sound broke the quiet, faint but steady coming from the window pane. Taylor froze. "Please tell me that's just a tree branch." Alex got up and looked. Nothing. No tree, no branch, just fog and the vague outline of the streetlight across the road. The scratching stopped. "Wind," Alex said finally, though his voice lacked conviction. He sat back down and forced a laugh. "We're jumpy because it's day one." Jamie closed her laptop and stretched. "Tomorrow we hit the Historical Society. If the town has skeletons, that's where they'll be buried." "Pun intended?" Taylor asked. She smiled. "Always." Later that night, when the others were asleep, Alex lay awake staring at the ceiling. Somewhere outside, a train whistle blew, a long, mournful sound that faded into the hills. He thought about Mrs. Hargrove's warning, about the way the locals' eyes had followed them. It wasn't just small-town suspicion. It was something else, something closer to fear. He reached for his notebook and wrote, "If the town likes to talk, maybe it's time we listen." Then, from the hallway, came a sound, soft and deliberate, like someone dragging a fingernail across wood. He sat up, heart thudding. "Jamie?" he whispered. No answer. The sound stopped. When he finally drifted off, his last thought was that maybe the town really was talking. He just hadn't learned its language yet. The morning after the scratching, Willow Creek looked even deader in the daylight. The fog had lifted, but in its place hung a gray sky so low it seemed to press down on the town. The air carried that metallic chill that warned of an early frost. Jamie said it smelled like wet pennies and old paper. Taylor said it smelled like something buried. They packed their gear into the SUV, cameras, mics, and a thermos of stale motel coffee, and drove toward the Historical Society. The GPS led them to a brick building that used to be a church, its steeple leaning slightly, like it was tired of standing. The words Willow Creek Historical Archive were painted in flaking white letters above a pair of oak doors. One door hung crooked on its hinge. Inside, it was colder than outside. Dust floated in the slanted light that filtered through stained glass windows depicting scenes of small-town pride, railroads, harvests, parades, none of which looked recent. The air smelled faintly of mold and incense. Somewhere deep in the building, a clock ticked too slowly. A man appeared from between two tall shelves of records. He was thin, white-haired, and wore a dark vest over a collared shirt buttoned up to his throat. His name tag read E. Thorne. "You're not from around here," he said, voice calm but not welcoming. Alex offered a hand. "We're working on a documentary. We'd love to look through the town's archives, old photos, newspaper clippings, anything from the 1880s? Thorne's expression didn't change. "That was a bad decade." Jamie tried to smile. "We heard something about the plague years. We're just trying to document the history before it disappears." He studied her, then turned and began walking toward the back without another word. "Follow me," he said finally. They trailed him past glass display cases holding old farm tools and sepia portraits of grim-faced families. Dust had gathered on everything except a single polished cross hanging above the entrance. Thorne stopped at a long wooden table stacked with binders and brittle pages sealed in plastic sleeves. "These are the public records," he said. "The rest are restricted, out of respect." "Respect for who?" Taylor asked. Thorne's eyes shifted to him, cold and steady. "For the dead." Jamie flipped open one of the binders. The yellowed clippings told fragments of a story, mentions of widespread illness, quarantine efforts, and civil unrest. But the language grew stranger the deeper she read. Words like purification, containment, silent nights. Then the reports stopped altogether after 1885. "What happened after that?" Jamie asked. The records just end. Thorne's fingers rested on the page. Some stories are best left buried, he said softly, like the ones about the whispers. The whispers? Taylor echoed. Is that a metaphor? Or... Thorne closed the binder with a quiet snap. You came here for history, not ghost stories. Alex's camera was already rolling. History and ghost stories aren't always that different. That earned him a small, humorless smile. Maybe not, but they both have a habit of coming back. He turned away, disappearing down an aisle of shelves before they could ask anything else. Jamie's recorder clicked on. The librarian mentioned whispers. That's the first local acknowledgement of anything supernatural. Time, 11:23 a.m., date, October 12th. We're onto something. Alex sighed, half amused, half uneasy. You make it sound like we just unlocked a level in a horror game. Maybe we did, she said. That afternoon, they split up. Alex and Taylor headed toward the old cemetery on the hill for B-roll shots. The place was overgrown, gravestones tilted at odd angles like teeth. Crows gathered on the branches of leafless trees, watching as the camera drone buzzed overhead. Taylor adjusted the focus ring on his camera. Man, this is great footage, but it's creepy as hell. These stones are from the 1800s. Perfect. Gives us texture, Alex said. Just try not to step on anything important. Taylor was about to joke back when he froze. Near the far corner of the graveyard, half shrouded in weeds, he saw a figure standing among the stones, a dark silhouette, motionless. Hey, he whispered. Someone's here. Alex turned, squinting. The spot was empty. Taylor rubbed his eyes. I swear to God I saw. It's probably a trick of the light. The fog's rolling back in. But Taylor didn't look convinced. He zoomed in with the lens, nothing but gravestones and mist. Still, the camera's mic picked up something faint, something like a breath brushing the edge of a whisper. Meanwhile, Jamie had tracked down Mrs. Wilkins, a lifelong resident who lived in a weathered house near the town square. The old woman greeted her from the porch, wrapped in a shawl, eyes sharp and glassy. You're one of those outsiders, she said. Come to film the dead? Jamie smiled politely. We're just trying to tell the truth about the town's history. Mrs. Wilkins gave a low chuckle. Truth don't like to be told. Not here. Jamie clicked on her recorder. What happened during the plague years, Mrs. Wilkins? The woman's face tightened. They burned the bodies, she said after a long pause. But the souls? They never left. Jamie's hand stilled. What do you mean? But Mrs. Wilkins had already turned away, muttering something about the mill and the sleeping ones. The door shut before Jamie could ask more. When the group reconvened at the SUV, the sky had darkened to bruised purple. Jamie relayed what she'd heard while Alex unrolled a map. Thorne had slipped into one of their folders, hand-drawn with faded ink marks around the edges. Look, he said, that's the river. The old mill sits right here, north of town. If those graves exist, that's where they are. Taylor stared at the mark. You think that's what Mrs. Wilkins meant? The sleeping ones? Jamie nodded. If the town burned the bodies, maybe that's where they dumped the ashes. Or worse. Alex's grin was both nervous and thrilled. Then we know where we're going next. Night crept fast over Willow Creek. Back at the motel, their room was a mess of cords, coffee cups, and laptops glowing in the dim light. The footage from the cemetery played on Alex's screen, graves, mist, and faint motion between the trees. Freeze that, Jamie said suddenly. He did. For a split second, there was a shadow, not human, not quite shaped right, moving along the edge of the frame. Could be dust, Alex said, though his voice betrayed doubt. Lens flare, maybe. Taylor leaned closer. Lens flare doesn't move like that. Jamie replayed it again, slower. Then, faintly, from the audio track came a whisper. Indistinct at first, like wind through reeds. Then clearer. A word. Maybe a name. Elias. They looked at each other, the same name as the librarian. That's... Taylor began, then stopped. Okay, that's creepy. Alex forced a chuckle. Probably interference. Radio bleed. There's an old train signal tower nearby. Jamie didn't answer. She was too busy scribbling notes. We go to the mill tomorrow. Taylor slumped back, rubbing his temples. We could also not go to the mill. Just throwing that out there. But no one laughed. Later, Taylor dreamed. In the dream, he was back at the cemetery. The fog was thick enough to taste. He knelt to adjust his camera, but when he looked up, they were open, shallow pits filled with black water. Hands, skeletal and wet, reached toward him. They clutched his wrists, cold and heavy. The sound came again, that whisper. Dozens of voices overlapping like static. Don't wake us. Don't wake us. He woke with a shout, drenched in sweat. The motel room was still dark. Jamie's laptop hummed softly from the desk. Alex slept, one arm over his face. Outside, something scraped faintly against the window. Steady, deliberate. Taylor stared at it until the sound stopped. By morning, he told himself it had just been a dream. But when they packed their gear, he noticed fresh scratches on the SUV's paint, right near his window. Thin, parallel, like something had dragged nails across the metal. He said nothing, just climbed in, turned on the radio and muttered, "Let's get this over with." As they drove past the town sign again, the morning fog curled around it like smoke. "Welcome to Willow Creek. Este, 1839. From the back seat, Jamie whispered, "Tomorrow night, the mill." Taylor didn't respond, but under his breath, he swore he could still hear something faint in the static of the radio. A voice whispering names he didn't recognize. The moon hung low over Willow Creek that night, fat and colorless, casting a pale glaze over the rusted roof of the old mill. The air smelled of damp metal and rotting leaves. From the dirt road, the structure looked less like a building and more like a carcass, its windows punched out like empty eye sockets, its walls sagging with ivy and time. Alex killed the headlights and parked the SUV 100 yards away. The three of them sat in silence for a moment, their breath fogging the windows. Somewhere in the distance, a lone dog barked once, then stopped, as if reminded of something better left unspoken. "All right," Alex said finally, exhaling. "We go in, grab what footage we can, and we're out by midnight, just like we planned." Taylor swallowed hard, adjusting the GoPro strapped to his chest. "Yeah, because nothing bad ever happens when people say that in horror movies." Jamie smirked faintly. "Relax, it's just a building. A very haunted, potentially cursed building. Sure, but still just a building." She grinned, but her voice carried a nervous edge. The crunch of gravel beneath their boots felt too loud as they approached. Every step seemed to echo. The closer they got, the colder the air became. When they reached the entrance, a gaping doorway swallowed in darkness, Taylor's flashlight flickered twice before steadying. "Guess the ghosts paid the electric bill," he muttered. Inside, the mill was a cathedral of decay. Rusted machinery loomed in the corners, half swallowed by shadows. Thick dust coated the floors like ash. A single chain dangled from the ceiling, swaying gently as if stirred by unseen fingers. Their footsteps sent echoes ricocheting off the high beams. Jamie started recording voice notes, her recorder's red light blinking like a heartbeat. October 14th, 11:02 p.m. We're inside the Willow Creek Mill. Locals claim the victims of the 1883 cholera epidemic were buried beneath this site. We're here to... She froze mid-sentence. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Alex and Taylor stopped moving. At first, it was faint, a rustle like fabric dragging against wood. Then came a murmur, a cluster of hushed voices that seemed to bloom from the walls themselves. Not words exactly, more like fragments. Breathing, sighing, whispering. Taylor spun, his light slicing through the darkness. "It's the wind," he said quickly, too quickly. "Old buildings do that." But there was no wind, not even a draft. Alex lifted his camera and started filming. The lens glared with faint static as if struggling to focus. "Keep rolling," he said. They moved deeper. A door on the left led to a narrow hall filled with collapsed beams and broken glass. Jamie's beam caught something scrawled across the brick in charcoal black letters. "They watch from below." She shivered. "Okay, creepy graffiti count, 1. Taylor laughed softly, but it came out thin. He adjusted his light again, and for a split second it caught a human silhouette standing at the far end of the corridor. He blinked. Gone. "Did you see that?" he hissed. "No one's there," Alex said, peering through the camera screen. Taylor lowered his voice. "Man, I swear I..." A sudden clang cut him off, a piece of metal falling from above. The noise echoed through the mill, sharp as a gunshot. All three froze. When the echoes died, Jamie moved forward and spotted an old iron hook lying on the floor. "Something made that drop," she murmured. Alex knelt, running his hand over the concrete. Beneath the dust, he found something buried, a piece of weathered wood. He brushed it clean, revealing a name etched into the surface. Martha A. Hargrove, 1883. "Hargrove?" Taylor said. "Like the motel lady?" Jamie nodded slowly. "She said her family's been here for generations." Alex took a breath. "Keep rolling. We're onto something." They pushed deeper into the mill until they reached the basement stairs. The wooden steps groaned under their weight as they descended into the dark. The air grew colder, thick with the stink of mildew and earth. The flashlight beams caught rows of barrels and crates, old supplies, half rotted. Jamie's recorder picked up faint audio distortion like whispering static. "Guys," she said quietly, "this is the same interference we got on last night's tapes." "Yeah," Taylor muttered, his voice trembling. "Maybe because we're standing on top of a goddamn mass grave." Alex set his camera on a tripod, facing the far wall where the dirt looked recently disturbed. "Let's test something," he said, pulling out Jamie's phone. She downloaded a spirit communication app earlier, a cheap gimmick, they joked. Now the humor was gone. Jamie switched it on. The device emitted a soft white hiss. For a moment, nothing. Then, "Leave." The word came faint, mechanical, but distinct. Taylor staggered back. Nope, I'm done, that's it." But before anyone could respond, the lights flickered violently. Their flashlights dimmed to weak glows. Somewhere behind them, chains rattled. A gust of freezing air swept through the basement, carrying with it a sound like distant crying. Jamie's voice shook. "Alex, tell me that was you breathing down my neck." Alex's lips parted. "I'm 3 feet away from you." Something brushed past them, a cold pressure, invisible but undeniably real. The camera's viewfinder glitched, showing a figure where no one stood, a pale shape with hollow eyes staring from the corner. Taylor screamed and swung his flashlight. The beam passed through empty space. "Go, move!" Alex shouted. They bolted up the stairs, stumbling into the main floor. As they ran for the exit, a door slammed shut in front of them with bone-rattling force. Jamie yanked at the handle. It didn't budge. "It's locked!" "Then go around," Alex shouted, dragging her toward another corridor. Taylor tripped over debris, scraping his knee. When he looked up, something stood at the end of the hall. A woman, or what was left of one. Her face was gray and bloated, eyes leaking black tears. Her mouth opened impossibly wide, and from it came a chorus of whispers. Hundreds of overlapping voices screaming the same thing. "You buried us alive!" Taylor's scream echoed off the rafters. They burst through a side door and into the cold night air, running toward the SUV. Behind them, the mill shuddered as if something massive had woken beneath it. Alex fumbled the keys, hands shaking. Come on! The engine roared to life, and they tore down the dirt road, gravel spraying behind them. No one spoke for several minutes. The sound of their ragged breathing filled the car. Finally, Taylor broke the silence. "I got scratched," he muttered, pulling up his sleeve. 3 long marks, too even, too deliberate, ran down his forearm, already turning purple. Jamie's face went pale. "We have to get out of this town, tonight." Alex's eyes stayed on the road. "No," he said quietly. "We finish what we started. Tomorrow, we go back. We find out who those people were and why they're still here." Jamie turned toward him, disbelief in her voice. "Alex, you saw what I saw. That wasn't just a story. This is real." "I know," he whispered. "That's exactly why we have to tell it." Back at the Willow Inn, the lobby was dark except for a flickering bulb above the front desk. Mrs. Hargrove was waiting, wrapped in her faded shawl. Her eyes were hollow, her voice brittle as paper. "You shouldn't have gone there," she said. "You stirred it up. Now it'll come for all of us." Alex tried to speak, but no words came. Jamie helped Taylor upstairs, muttering curses under her breath. In their room, they locked the door and sat in silence. The recorder lay on the table, still running. For a long time, only the hum of the ceiling fan filled the air. Then, faintly, a whisper. It spoke their names. All 3. Alex, Jamie, Taylor. They stared at one another, the color draining from their faces. Then, from the mirror across the room, a reflection shifted, not theirs, but someone else's. A pale face smiled back at them, lips moving silently before the glass fogged over with a single word, soon. Morning came, gray and heavy, pressing down on Willow Creek like a wet shroud. The fog hadn't lifted. If anything, it had thickened overnight, clinging to the rooftops and trees in clumps like cobwebs. The streets were empty, no kids on bikes, no farmers' trucks, not even the stray dog they'd seen near the diner. The silence felt intentional, as if the whole town was holding its breath. Alex parked the SUV in front of the motel office. Mrs. Hargrove wasn't behind the counter this time. Only a half-finished cup of coffee sat on the desk, the surface rippling faintly, though no one had touched it. Jamie rubbed her arms. "You feel that?" she whispered. "It's like the air's buzzing." Taylor stood by the door, pale and sleepless. The scratches on his arm were angrier this morning, redder, deeper. "I say we leave," he muttered. "Pack up, hit the highway, never look back." Alex shook his head. His voice came out rough but resolute. "If we leave now, we've got nothing. No footage, no story. Just three scared idiots running from shadows." "They're not shadows," Taylor snapped. "They're people, or whatever's left of them." Jamie glanced at Alex, torn. What if he's right? What if filming more just feeds it? Alex met her eyes. Or maybe it ends it. We saw what's down there. We owe it to them to tell the truth. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then a voice rasped from behind them. "You can't end it with cameras." They turned. Standing in the doorway was Elias Thorne, the librarian from the Historical Society. His tweed jacket was dusted with dirt, his eyes rimmed with red. Jamie blinked. "Mr. Thorne? What are you doing here?" "I couldn't sleep," he said simply. "The dead don't let me anymore." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You found the mill, didn't you? You heard them." Alex nodded. "We did. They're real." Elias sighed. "I warned you. The curse doesn't rest once it's stirred. It feeds on guilt, on secrets. And this town has more than its share." Jamie frowned. "You said something about the whispers being tied to the epidemic. What really happened?" Elias hesitated, then removed a folded piece of parchment from his coat pocket. It was brittle and yellowed, ink faded to brown. "This is from my great-grandfather's journal," he said. He was one of the councilmen during the plague. When people started dying, they panicked. They buried the sick alive to stop the spread. They called it mercy. Taylor's voice cracked. "Mercy?" Elias nodded slowly. "They thought sealing them underground would end the disease. Instead, it damned the town. Every generation since has heard the whispers. And now," he glanced at Alex, "you've woken them fully." The three outsiders exchanged grim looks. Jamie was the first to speak. "Then help us stop it." By late afternoon, they were back at the mill. The fog had turned to a steady drizzle, coating everything in a thin, cold sheen. The building loomed darker than before, its warped boards groaning with each gust of wind. Elias carried a lantern. Alex and Jamie had shovels. Taylor trailed behind, clutching a crowbar like a lifeline. "This is insane," he muttered. "We're literally digging up a curse." Jamie gave a humorless laugh. "You got a better plan?" The four of them entered the mill. The air inside felt thicker, like walking underwater. Every sound seemed muffled except one, a low, rhythmic whisper coming from beneath the floorboards. They moved to the corner where Alex had found the carved name the night before. The wood was softer now, the air rank with rot. Elias knelt, pressed his palm to the floor, and whispered something. An old prayer, maybe. Then he looked up. "Here. Start here." The shovels bit into the dirt with dull thuds. The deeper they dug, the stronger the smell became, a mix of wet earth and something older, something wrong. After 10 minutes, Taylor's shovel hit something hard. The metallic clink echoed through the mill. He knelt and brushed away the soil. Bones. A whole arm, curled unnaturally close to the ribcage. The fingers still wore a rusted wedding ring. Jamie covered her mouth, trembling. "Oh my God!" Elias stared down at the remains, eyes glistening. "They buried them here," he whispered. "All of them." Before Alex could respond, the ground shuddered. A deep, hollow groan rippled beneath their feet. The air temperature dropped instantly. The lantern flickered. Then the whispers returned, louder, closer. "They burned us. They buried us. They lied." Jamie's recorder screeched with static. The shovels rattled in their hands. From the shadows at the far end of the room, a shape began to form, mist swirling into the outline of a human figure. Then another, and another. Within seconds, dozens of pale, translucent faces emerged, their mouths open in soundless screams. Taylor stumbled back. "We gotta go." "Wait," Alex shouted. "Maybe they just want to be heard." Elias stepped forward, holding up the lantern. "They don't want to be heard, son. They want justice." The ground split open with a violent crack. Bones spilled from the earth, hundreds of them, tumbling like surfacing waves. The specters screamed in unison, their voices a hurricane of agony and rage. Jamie fell to her knees, clutching her head. "Make it stop!" Alex grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the exit. But Elias didn't move. He stood frozen, staring at the pit. "I see them," he murmured. "My family, my sins." One of the apparitions, an old woman with hollow eyes, reached out and touched his chest. His lantern shattered. His body convulsed once, twice, and then went still. Taylor dragged Jamie to her feet, shouting, "Go! Go! Go!" They sprinted through the mill, dodging collapsing beams and flying debris. The spirits followed, their screams echoing through the rafters. Alex looked back once and saw Elias's face glowing faintly among them. Peaceful, at last. They burst out into the rain, gasping for air. Behind them, the mill shook as if trying to tear itself apart. "We have to end it," Jamie shouted over the wind. "The journals, the artifacts, they're what's binding it here." Alex's mind raced. "The ones we found last night, they're still in the car." They ran to the SUV, grabbed the old leather-bound books, and piled them near the road. Taylor drenched them in lighter fluid from his camera kit. His hands were shaking. Alex hesitated, staring at the mill. "If we do this, we lose everything. All the proof, all the footage." Jamie turned to him, rain streaking down her face. "Alex, look at me. This isn't a story anymore." He nodded. Then he struck the match. The flames leapt high, orange against the fog. For a moment, the whispers turned to screams, then to silence. The mill's roof caved in, collapsing into itself as the fire roared. A shockwave of wind swept over them, scattering ashes into the trees. And just like that, Willow Creek was quiet again. By sunrise, the fire had burned itself out. The mill was gone, reduced to a blackened scar on the earth. The fog had lifted. Birds were singing again, hesitant but real. Taylor sat on the hood of the SUV, staring at his bandaged arm. "I can't believe we made it out," he said softly. Jamie managed a tired smile. "You almost didn't. You were brave back there." He laughed weakly. Brave or stupid? Hard to tell the difference sometimes. Alex loaded the last of their gear. His camera was fried, the footage corrupted. But it didn't matter. They'd seen enough. As they drove out of town, Jamie rolled down her window, looking back one last time. The morning light touched the ruins of the mill, and for just a second, she thought she saw Elias standing there, smiling faintly before fading into mist. 2 weeks later, back in Chicago, the trio sat in Alex's apartment, piecing together their podcast episode. They didn't include the ghosts or the fire or the curse, just the historical facts, a sanitized version of what really happened. When they finished editing, Jamie hit play. The intro music rolled, followed by Alex's narration. Then, beneath the audio, barely audible, came another voice. A whisper. Soft, familiar. "Tell them we're still here." The three froze. The whisper repeated a little louder this time. "Tell them the truth." Taylor slammed the laptop shut, heart pounding. Nope, I'm done." Jamie met Alex's gaze. Neither spoke, but both knew. The curse hadn't stayed in Willow Creek, it had followed them home. And somewhere, beneath the hum of city noise, the whispers began again.